Hello and welcome to my first ever video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this table with a folding bench. Let's get into it. To start with, I cut out any imperfections, then cut all the timber to size. Next, I marked out and drilled all the holes for the half moon nuts and bolts. With the frame finished, I started on jointing the tabletop. However, as I was marking it out, I realised I couldn't find any jointing biscuits, which were kind of essential. So instead, I moved on to assembling the bench top. I cut a small 45 on either side of the bearers to prevent someone catching on them. Then I marked out the positions of the slats on the bearers, drilled them out, and screwed them to the slats. When I had finished it, however, I found that the two bearers either side didn't seem to be giving enough support to the slats, and so I cut an extra bearer and screwed it in the centre. I then started on the legs, where I encountered another issue. I was using folding shelf brackets to fold the legs. However, the catch on the bracket, which locks it at 90 degrees, had a slight notch in it, meaning in order to release and fold it, the leg had to be tilted back. But this was impossible, as the leg sat flush against the bench top. To overcome this, I removed the notch so it could release without having to go beyond 90 degrees. I used a 5-inch angle grinder to remove the notch, then cleaned it up using a small file. To hold the legs in place whilst folded, I placed neodymium magnets on the bench top and legs, and used a small block as a packer. I then cut a piece of scrap to the same size as the legs to use as a prop, whilst I marked out the positions of the metal pivots. To keep the pivots in place, I first made a groove in the pivots, then split a washer and squeezed it onto the pivot. This allows it to move freely without the risk of it slipping out. Having now acquired some jointing biscuits, I began to start biscuiting the boards. For this, I used my trimmer with a size 10 biscuit cutter. For the clamping, I only had one sash clamp, which wasn't much use on its own, so I got some scrap boards out and placed blocks either end. The idea behind this was that I would clamp a section, then screw a block in place to hold that tension, repeating across the board. I then finished off the pivots by squaring off the hole I had made and using a small block to fill it with. This would hold the pivot in place so it couldn't slip out, and also give it a more pleasing aesthetic. With the glue on the tabletop now dried, it was time to move on to finishing the top. For this, I needed to first make the board square and cut to size using a straight edge and a circular saw. Then, I needed to scrape off any excess glue and sand down both sides with an orbital sander, starting at 40 grit, then graduating to 240 grit. Next, I marked out each corner for a 20mm radius, then cut them out with a jigsaw. I finished the corners with a 240 grit sanding block, then put a round over on both sides of the table using a 6mm radius cutter. I finished off by filling in any imperfections in the top, then I started the disassembly of the bench so I could sand it up to 240 grit and add a round over. I marked out each of the screw holes for securing the top to the frame, then pre-drilled them so I could begin to disassemble and sand down the frame and the top. I then began to add the final touch, Osmo Top Oil, which is food safe, so very well suited for this application, and it looks great. And this is the finished result. This type of thing is great for places where there isn't a lot of space, and it's also very convenient. If you did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. That's all for now, and I'll see you in the next video.